Hello, my name is Michael Trest, and welcome to my little studio. It's kind of an impromptu little setup, but it'll suffice. Today we're going to be talking about instructional design, the theories, the models, but most importantly, the definition of it. I think it's often misunderstood. And that's a shame because so many learning experiences and learning situations could be improved upon, could be made effective. Learners could be benefited if people would just understand what instructional design is. So let's talk about it. What is instructional design? It's a fair question. And to be honest, I didn't even know whenever I began the PhD in Instructional Technology and Design program here at USM. All I knew whenever I was getting into it was that my degree was going to be based in education and technology. And as an educator and as a nerd, I loved both of them. So, I was all in. I was ready to go. But this whole idea of instructional design, it didn't really click until one of my first courses here. It was IT 601. We were talking about the definition of this thing called instructional design. We were reading this book, Trends and Issues in Instructional Design and Technology, and in chapter 2 it talks specifically what this is, and it says instructional design is a systematic process that is employed to develop education and training programs in a consistent and reliable fashion. Okay, so I read that and I was like, what? It didn't make any sense. But if you'll break it down, it really does. It's a process that is used to develop education/training, they're the same, in a consistent and reliable fashion. So when we consider the kind of things that instructional design could have an impact on, we need to think about the learning experiences. I'm going to call them formal and informal learning experiences, and it's important to differentiate between these because there are some things that just happen natural, where you learn and you don't need an instructor, you don't need an instructional designer, you don't need anybody. For instance, I'm walking through my house, it's late at night, the lights are off, I'm thirsty, so I'm going and I stub my toe on a chair. Immediately, I've learned that chair is there, and whenever I'm passing it, I need to be careful, because that hurt. I don't need an instructional designer to tell me that. I don't need an instructional experience or environment to be constructed so that they can help me learn and make me a more effective walker from my bed to the sink. That would be ridiculous. But what's not so ridiculous is, let's consider Lowe's. All right? They're a big corporation. They've got stores everywhere. All right? As a new employee at Lowe's, I need to learn some procedures. I need to learn the effective ways to do things. I need to learn how to use the computers, the cash register. I need to learn, number of things so that I can be an effective employee and not get fired, right? All right, so there's a couple of different ways that I can do this. We can do it with a one-on-one training session. Let's say they assign me somebody, and he or she goes around telling me, okay, this is a computer, this is how you do it. This is this, this is this, this is it. Which wouldn't be a bad way to do things, except that we're moving away from this systematic process that we're talking about. Let's say that Lowe's employs an instructional designer to train everybody. All right? The instructional designer is not the expert on the content. The instructional designer just knows how to create a learning experience that can be used all over the place. So let's go back to my example with the guy from Lowe's. The instructional designer creates a training program, a module-based training program, if you will, and it goes through and explains each of the separate processes. Then Lowe's likes it and they distribute it everywhere so that every new employee that comes into Lowe's is going to be able to go through this training program, and they're all going to know, or supposed to know, upon the exit of that program, everything they need to be a successful employee. If it was just the other way with the one-on-one trainer, there's all these things left up to chance. The trainer may leave something out. They may be having a bad day and not even want to go into it. They may be, there's any number of things that could happen. So you're left with new employees that have fragmented knowledge. They may or may not know everything they need to know. Whereas with the instructional design training program, they have a consistent experience, and they should all know pretty much the exact same thing. So where can this be used? Everywhere. It can be used obviously in business and corporations. You always hear about, I got to go do this training program on the computer. That was done by an instructional designer. The government, military, anywhere there's going to be a training program where a learning process needs to happen across multiple people in a systematic process, you're going to find instructional design practices. Somewhere where you might not be thinking about it, maybe the most obvious, is education. Every single class or instructional activity, educational environment, experience can be benefited by these instructional design practices. Unfortunately, most teachers and educators don't have a clue about them. They create their lesson plans and their instruction without considering some of the most important things that instructional design considers, such as learning theories. Why do people learn the way they learn? They don't consider the model or the models of instructional design, such as this ADDIE model: analyze, design, develop, implement, and evaluate. If you consider instructional design as a process, let's break it down. And the ADDIE model does a great job of breaking it down, okay? It starts with the analysis phase, if you will. The analysis phase is basically looking and researching the learners, the learning experience, the tasks that are involved, and it prepares the designer for all of these things. It considers who are the learners, what do they know, what do they not know, all right? What are their backgrounds? Why are they coming to take this course? How are they motivated? All of these things are pertinent information to what's going to make this an effective instructional activity. All right? Then you design with help from the content experts, and I think it's important to note that the instructional designer is not the instructor. The instructional designer is not the content expert. The instructional designer simply comes from another perspective and offers solutions, advice, instruction to the instructor on how to teach. All right? It's getting into the root of the learning, not the content. The content from the instructional designer's perspective is, it's primary and secondary. It's primary because, you got to learn this stuff. It's secondary because from the instructional designer's point of view, the learning is the goal. The learning itself, not the content, all right? And that's why instructional designer can be used across many different situations. So, analysis, design, develop. Of course, you're going to use the best tool. An instructional designer has many different tools, especially when considering design and technology. All right? The technology is just a tool. All right? So the instructional designer has old tools, new tools, whatever they need. So analyze, design, develop, implement, that's of course the learning experience, and then evaluate. Evaluation is just as key as the analysis part. Was this an effective learning experience? Did we get the analysis right? What areas were weak? On and on and on. And then it goes back, boom, to the analysis part. Let's tweak it. All right, now we have some more questions about why this wasn't effective. Let's learn a little bit more about the learners. And it just gets better and better and better. Instructional design cannot fix every learning situation. All right? You need to think about it as guidelines, as best practices, as proper pedagogy. It's not the cure-all. It cannot fix an instructor who won't change. It cannot fix learners who are not willing to learn. It's a tool. It's another tool to help learners learn and help instructors teach. It's a great tool though. We've already mentioned some advantages. It's limited by the learners, it's limited by the instructor. It's limited by the environment sometimes. It's limited by available tools. All of these things need to be considered when talking about the advantages and the limitations. The situation that I'm in right now is an interesting one, and it's a great opportunity. I'm currently a student here at USM, learning about instructional technology and design, and kind of fired up about it. I've got this great, all this new information that I can use and learn about and everything, but I'm also an adjunct instructor at William Carey, teaching a graduate level education and technology class. So not only am I getting all this new information, but I have a sandbox to play with it and try it out. So what I did, I made a module unit, and we talked a little bit about basic things, and then we just kind of got deeper and deeper into technology and education. I tried to make it very hands-on and use tools that they either have for free or they can get for free. But the instructional design principles that went with it are about the learning theories. All right? I tried to build upon what they knew. I tried to give them opportunity to explore and learn for themselves. I provided resources for them, but I also gave them opportunities to go out and find new ways, new things. I gave them a very collaborative discussion board where they could pretty much work together and bounce questions off, and they did. They were a little hesitant at first, but they began to discover that others in the class had just as good a perspective as they did, and even better sometimes. And then at the end of the course, I gave a survey. And this is really the beginning for me. It's funny, the beginning is at the end, but with my new knowledge about instructional design practices, I've come to understand the importance of the analysis and the evaluation process. So I made a survey for the student to go through and let me know exactly what was effective, what was not effective, answer these questions that I've had that I can't really answer just from an outsider's perspective, but hopefully they'll give me some insight on what K through 12 educators need, what tools was useful, and what I can do different in the next course. We're going to need to know what kind of learners we have in this course. We're going to need to know what the tasks are that we are going to set before them. So it's important to me to use especially these analysis procedures that are found in instructional design. The task analysis and the learner analysis. I need to know who I'm dealing with. This survey is going to give me a great wealth of information about who I'm dealing with, what they know when they came in. Was this course, this one, challenging? And then whenever I'm designing my lessons, I need to make sure that I include enough pertinent information so that they don't get lost on the way. You know? Then we develop it and we implement it. And I think it's important that analysis carries all the way through. All right? So whenever I'm implementing this, I need to also be on a constant state of analysis. That's just a little about me and how I use these instructional design principles in my classes and learning experiences. And you know, I use them in my job. I get to witness the instructional designer on campus in my office as she goes through and she breaks down these courses that instructors have made and asks really pointed questions. Why are you teaching this? Why do you need learners to know this? What is it about this that students react to? You know, she goes through and it's brilliant to watch. But I think as instructional design combined with technology, as I think as this gets more ingrained into the educational learning experiences and educational experiences as a whole, I think that it's only going to get, if there is such a thing, more required. Because learning is not becoming simpler. The concepts in which students are learning is not becoming simpler. I think they're only becoming more complex. And I think, without getting too industrial with this, that instructional design learning experiences are going to become a necessity for a great many things. So, I hope that you have enjoyed this little foray into my mind of instructional design. And I hope that you have a great night.